Time to shed some light on an issue that's plagued me since releasing my NZXT Air RGB video. NZXT has their Hue Plus and their Air RGB fans, their own little lighting ecosystem, and now Corsair has their Lighting Node PRO and their HD120 and 140 RGB fans. And now you have no idea which one to get. Oh, the humanity! First and foremost, it's probably important to know which will best fit in your case. NZXT's Hue Plus has mounting holes and dimensions akin to that of a solid-state drive, coming in at 100 by 70 by 23.5 millimeters. But with this additional height, its compatibility with some mounting solutions is a little limited. Corsair's Lighting Node PRO is much smaller at 55 by 31 by 12 millimeters, and Corsair includes double-sided adhesive, making your mounting options near limitless. If I were to go over each and every detail regarding each and every purchase option and each and every cable that came out of each and every box, I would be here for forever and a day. So I'll try to link each bundle you can buy in the description below if you need more details, but otherwise the important information is as follows. The Hue Plus comes with the unit itself, mounting screws, 4 LED strips, both magnetic and adhesive at 300 millimeters long, with 10 LEDs each, several extension cables at varying lengths, a Molex cable for power, and an internal USB 2.0 cable for software control. You can buy packages for additional LED strips as well as their Air RGB fans in sizes of 120 or 140 millimeters in packs of 1 or 3. These LED strips and the connection cable for the fans are proprietary. Lighting functions will not work without the Hue Plus unit. Exercising those fluid dynamic bearings, the fans can spin from 500 to 1500 RPM. The 120mm version is rated for up to 52.44 CFM, and the 140mm fan is good for up to 91.19 CFM in terms of airflow. Both sizes are advertised to have a noise level of 33 decibels. The Node PRO is powered via SATA cable, and it comes with 4 black LED strips as opposed to NZXT's white, also magnetic and adhesive at 410mm long with 10 LEDs each, 4 LED extension cables, 2 HD RGB fan hub adapter cables, an internal USB 2.0 cable for lighting control, and 2 small adhesive strips for mounting. Note that if you ever find yourself in a sticky situation, you'll need new tape to remount it. As far as I can tell, there are no additional LED strips for the Lighting Node PRO, but there are for just the Lighting Node. Since I don't have the normal node on hand for comparisons, we'll be leaving that one in the dark. The included LED strips will require the Lighting Node PRO to work, however, the HD120 RGB fans don't. You can choose to use the included controller if you selected the appropriate package instead. Since the controller is a physical switch, I wouldn't consider it to be the most elegant solution, so you may want to find a way to mount it to your desk or the outside of your case. We'll go over that in more detail later. As for the fans, they were initially released at 120mm only, but 140mm versions were just very recently launched, and both fans use hydraulic bearings. You can buy the 120mm fans in single packs with or without a controller, or triple packs, and the 140mm fans come in single packs or a twin pack with a controller. I'm not sure if they plan on releasing more purchasing options yet, but I wouldn't be too surprised. The 120mm fans spin anywhere between 800 and 1725 RPM, and are rated for up to 54.4 CFM, and spit out about 30 decibels worth of noise. The 140mm fans spin between 600 and 1350 RPM and are rated for about up to 74 CFM and peak at 28.6 decibels. If you put your ear up to the fan, you can hear the RGB. Both platforms require a USB 2.0 header on your motherboard, so that's important to keep in mind, as in many cases, your case I/O will require one for its USB ports, and if you have an all-in-one water cooler, that typically occupies a port as well. There are internal USB 2.0 hubs you can get to remedy the issue, and I'll have an option or two linked down below. Each unit comes with 2 channels, and each channel supports up to 4 LED strips or a certain number of fans. NZXT's allows for up to 5 fans on one channel, and Corsair's allows for up to 6. This means that the Hue Plus can have up to 8 LED strips across 2 channels, or up to 10 fans across 2 channels, or up to 4 LED strips and up to 5 fans simultaneously. The same holds true for the Lighting Node PRO, except 6 fans instead of 5. Way to be the one-up guy, Corsair. In terms of connectivity, you'll have the Hue Plus box connected to its Molex power and the USB 2.0 header on your motherboard. Connected to the box is your connection cable or cables. Those cables will go to the LED strips and or the Air RGB fans. For the LED strips, you'll have to line up the black bar on the strip to the arrow on the cable. From there, the LED strips connect to one another either directly or with the provided extension cables, keeping in mind those arrows I talked about a couple seconds ago. The fans can be daisy-chained from one to another. Starting from the connection cable, connect to the in port of the first fan, then using the included cables, the out port from the first fan goes to the in port on the second fan, and so on. The fans will still need their 4-pin cable to be connected to your motherboard or a fan controller to control RPM. As for the Lighting Node Pro, connected to the USB 2.0 header on your motherboard and SATA power, you can connect the LED strip into the unit directly, and connect the LED strips with or without the included extensions. No need to worry about orientation here, they only fit one way. If you have the HD RGB fans, you'll have to connect them to the lighting hub. Then you can either keep the hub connected to the physical switch, or connect it to the Node Pro using this cable. And like the Air RGB fans, their 4-pin fan cables will also need to suck on the teat of your motherboard or a fan hub to feed that RPM. In terms of fan design, the Air RGBs don't seem to advertise whether they're specifically for static pressure or airflow, but judging by the blades, my best guess would be for the latter. Though I have used these on radiators before, and they perform just fine. The lighting only shows from one side of the fan, indicated by this diffusing ring that houses 8 LEDs. The air intakes from this side and exhausts where the sun don't shine. Corsair's HD RGB fans are designed for static pressure, so they'll do great on radiators and fairly well otherwise. The fan casing is clear on either side, holds 12 LEDs, and the fan blades are white, so light remains uninhibited. Now unfortunately, I can't do fair temperature comparisons here. I only have 140mm versions of the Air RGB fans and 120mm versions of the HD RGB fans, and I only found out the 140mm versions were released today, as I was recording. And I don't have any 120 or 240mm radiators either. The best I can do is slap them in the mean at 5 PM case and hope the RGB demo coming up is enough to distract you from my blisteringly blatant incompetence. Using a test configuration packing an AMD FX 8350 processor clocked at 4.7 GHz at 1.35 volts with the Fantex PH-TC14PE air cooler and my fairly dated GTX 760, I turned my room into a tiny oven by running AIDA 64 and Furmark for about an hour. Smelled a little like Chinese food. Using the mean at 5 PM case's integrated fan controller on the high setting, which sets the fans to max speed, and leaving the front panel off for unobstructed airflow, the Corsair HD120 RGB fans kept the processor and GPU at 51.4 and 71 degrees Celsius respectively. Using the NZXT Air RGB fans, we see the same test yield temperatures at 52.5 degrees Celsius for the processor and 72 degrees for the GPU. Ambient temperatures for both tests were in the 23 to 24 degrees Celsius range. Time to distract you with RGB and software before I get grilled for testing the fans poorly. I've already cooked myself, I don't need more roasting. NZXT's lighting control software is CAM. For the sake of keeping this video at a reasonable length, we'll skip over most of its functions and go straight to the shiny stuff. Each LED on each object is individually addressable, and you get access to fixed, breathing, fading, marquee, covering marquee, pulse, spectrum wave, alternating, candlelight, GPU temperature, CPU temperature, FPS, custom, where you can select LEDs individually, gaming mode, which is basically CSGO, and audio. If you want more information and you're a glutton for punishment, you can check out my terribly awful video of these fans up here. Corsair software is their Corsair Link, and it has some functions similar to CAM, but again, we're skipping straight to the flashy stuff here. Corsair's LEDs can all also be customized individually, and you have access to the following eye candy: rainbow, color shift, color pulse, color wave, static, and temperature. Corsair's fans are a bit of a different story. Their lighting effects change based on how you choose to control them. If you use Corsair Link, you get the same options as you would with the LED strips. If you use the physical controller, you'll want to pay attention to the order that you plug your fans in. The included fan hub is labeled 1 through 6. Any sequential effects will follow that order as the lighting in each fan activates. As for the effects, you have the following: static, pulse, flicker, sequential, marquee, rainbow, and demo mode. So while the fan controller has some pretty cool effects, you lose them if you switch over to using Corsair Link. However, you gain the convenience of not having to use the hardware switch, and the ability to synchronize the fans to the LED strips and customize the colors more accurately. I don't have the SP120 fans to demonstrate, but they only have 4 LEDs that are mounted in the middle of the fan, and only offer static, flicker, pulse, and a pulse flicker combo. You have access to 3 speeds and 7 different colors when you use the physical controller for both the SP and HD fans. Now that we've gone over both, let's talk about the dark sides. NZXT's first. While the fans look nice, the transitions aren't so smooth. This makes some of the slower effects look a little choppy. And speaking of choppy, many of NZXT's effects look fairly rough at lower speeds, even for their LED strips. The fan casing also only allows light to shine through one side of the fan, leaving the other side in the dark. This means that unless your case has a transparent panel, these don't look so bright when it comes to orienting them as intakes. The LED strips themselves are great, however, I have heard stories where people have seen some of the LEDs failing, causing inaccurate or no color. Speaking of inaccurate, if you look closely, the white on both the LED strips and the fan give off kind of a bluish tint. Now onto the Corsair Lighting Node PRO environment. First major issue is that these fans are only available at 120mm. If there were 140mm options, I'd be all over that like white on rice. At least that's what I would have said yesterday. It looks like I forgot to edit that part out. The first real issue is the discrepancy between the hardware controller and the software. I do like that Corsair gives us the option to use a physical controller if we don't want to purchase the Lighting Node PRO, but I'm a little disappointed that buying the Node PRO and using it with the fans actually removes some of the effects. The third thing is not really an issue, just kind of something to note. The Corsair LED strips have these little tail ends which adds considerable length. While I rarely hear anyone complaining that their appendages are too long, this means that Corsair's LED kit may be better suited for larger cases, as these extra cables won't have very many places to go otherwise. The last thing, and arguably most inconvenient, is Corsair's firmware update. I'm not sure how long this will persist for, but I started on firmware 1.46, and when I tried to update to 2.54, my fans refused to cooperate. None of them would show any light except for the first, and that would only make one LED kind of flicker. In order to fix this, you'll need to grab a pin or something thin and pointy. Don't look at me like that. While your computer is on and the Node PRO is disconnected from everything, hold down this unnecessarily receded button with a tool of your choice. While the button is held down, connect the USB cable and you should see your computer recognize a new drive. At this point, you can release the button. In that new drive, delete firmware.bin and copy the older version back in. I'll have a link to the forum post where the solution is discussed, and you should be able to find a link to that older firmware version somewhere in there. That being said, I recommend skipping update version 2.54 lest you end up with a headache like me. One issue that both systems share is their cables. Keeping the cables under control tends to be an RGB yacht. Corsair suffers especially from this, since the cables all have to go to a hub instead of bouncing from one fan to the next. Though it can be arguably more convenient if your fans are spread throughout your case. I know it's impossible to avoid cable clutter at this point in time, but your cable management game had better be on point, lest your RGB LED destroys the entire aesthetic. On the bright sides, NZXT's solution offers many more effects than Corsair's, though I find I only use a few of the more basic ones anyway, and their LED strips are white, which means that the LEDs appear brighter. On the other end of the RGB spectrum, Corsair's LED strips are just as vibrant, and they're in black, which makes them blend in a lot better with the majority of cases. Though, due to having a black strip, the colors may not appear as bright as NZXT's, even though the LEDs themselves are a real eye-opener. And while Corsair's RGB effects are much slower, they are also much smoother than NZXT's. Corsair's fans are also subjectively easier to install, since I've had a lot of people questioning the daisy chaining of the Air RGB fans. The last thing you'll want to consider is the system as a whole. Are you going to get NZXT's Kraken coolers or their Grid Plus fan hub? Or Corsair's all-in-one coolers or their Commander Mini? Each company integrates these products into their own respective software, so maybe you want to keep everything organized under one application. Or maybe you don't. Maybe you don't mind managing several programs for a different kind of look. However, once you decide which is best for you, I can say with certainty that your tower will easily transform into an RG beacon of RG beauty. If this video hasn't enlightened you, then I'm afraid the darkness has its grip tighter than a Molex cable trying to ruin your day on your poorly lit, desaturated life. So that's all I have to say about that. Like, dislike, comment, subscribe, share. Links to buy everything will be down in the description below. The first will be my Amazon affiliate link, which will give me a small kickback when you buy stuff at no additional cost to you. But if for some reason you found this video to be a little dim, then there's a regular Amazon link a little further down. Thanks for watching. My name is Steven, and I am a little dim. Bye-bye. And now you know... Now you have no... Oops. People yelling out there, so I figured I'd clean dust off my desk, but I didn't feel like getting my microfiber cloth out, so I thought I'd give my lungs a little workout. Each and every purchase option, 91.19 CFM in terms of airflow, which did not flow, and are rated for up to 50 pore. I have this many pore. That's not 50. I only have 10 fingers though. don't know which one I was using before. I'm gonna guess this one, although this one looks a little thick. But that's okay. No one ever complained about anything being a little too thick. It's too thick. NZXT allows for up to 5 chans up. 5 chans on one channel. 5 chan. As opposed to 4. Never mind. NZXT allows for up to 5 fans on one channel, and Corsair's allows for up to 6. I almost messed up. I think I did. I messed up. And the USB 2.0 header. 2.0 distract you from my blisteringly blatant incompetence. Why do I choose difficult words? With the Phanteks PHTC14PE cooler, list your RGB LED destroys your entire aesthetic. Damn it, I was so close. RG beacon of RG beauty. Oh my.